Hello, it is Sunday, February 4th, 2024. This is the first edition of my book review in 2024. I've actually got three ready to go, with a fourth one I actually have to make some more notes on before it comes out, so hopefully I can do these with a little more rapidity. Although at the same time, I'm trying to do my audio recording at this also, so I'm in the middle of my Edgar Rice Burroughs Barsoom series, as well as the Bible. And I think after I get more of those finished, you might actually see me going out to try to audition on Audible again to maybe get some paid work for this. But in the meantime, again, my name is Joe. This is Joe's book review. This is the first one of 2024, and I'm going to get right into it. So, this is Jim Butcher. I've actually done another Jim Butcher series in this series before, maybe about 2 months ago, which was his first one, Stormfront. Okay, and now he continues. So we are looking at Full Moon, as the lights wash this out, as more and more happens every day. This is Full Moon. Love the cover art. That dude they got there with the staff and the hat and the duster. It makes the character pop. That's pretty much what they're like. Now, this is the trade edition I actually read, so it's a larger brand of softcover. It's actually my preferred way to read novels. This actually are just slightly bigger than the paperback size. I typically like the ones that are almost softcover, about hardback size. That's the one I prefer the most. So I did this one, about 400 pages, and like the last book, you can breeze through it. It is not a hard read because it's so friendly material. It actually brings you along on that journey, and you want the next page to happen every time you're going through it. Even when it lulls a little bit, it still brings you into that mystical, magical world, because Harry Dresden, the hero of the series, might be doing some preliminary work ahead of time. He might be memorizing some incantations, or hanging out with Bob in his basement making a potion for some reason, or doing some research. And then the research actually gives you more knowledge of not only what's happening in this story, but also what's going to happen broader in the world, or worlds, plural, that Harry populates. So, 400 pages in the trade. Now, it does start out with its little introductory chapter, and he's talking to another woman in here, and they're going through like a primer on magic circles. And it's pretty good because, it's the second book of the series. Jim Butcher's still creating his world and letting you kind of know some of the rules he's figured out and what to expect coming forward. So he's got to introduce this world building however he can. And if he can do it in some master-apprentice type of relationship like he has in the first chapter, it makes it more fluid. And it just comes right to you. So, here he is, building his world, talking to someone about magical circles. And this is how these are the circles that Dresden operates in. See what I did there? It becomes a theme, magic circles, not only in this book, but just the full world. So, what can circles do in the world of Harry Dresden and the Dresden Files? You can trap someone or something inside the circle. Maybe if you want to barter with them or interrogate them, or maybe just, destroy them. You need a circle, you close it when they're in there, boom, they cannot get out. You can also use a circle the opposite direction, where you're the one trapped inside, where they call it a protection circle. And this we actually saw in the prior book, where there was a monster coming out, like a toad monster, I think, and he drew the circle around himself, popped it up, and the thing bashed on, the edge of the magic, couldn't get in, waited till dawn, boom, it's gone. So then the magic circle to protect, the circle of protection sometimes they call it, works out pretty well. And then I believe another way they do it is they use circles to summon beings or demons or other creatures or what have you. So you make the circle, you put whatever materials you need, like a potion, like in different corners of the circle, and I did specifically say corners of the circle. Maybe you put a little blood in there too, and all of a sudden say the magical words, alakazam, boom, demon arrives, and now you can have a little palaver and figure out what's going on. So, You get a primer to magic circles within the first chapter. Moving on. Just like the prior book, Harry Dresden is a consultant to the Chicago Police Department. And if they have an odd case, he does have a kind of a friend in the police department with a special unit that comes and asks him to consult on it. Okay? However, per the climax of the prior novel, there are repercussions to the relationships and everything that's happened. So, even being brought in, it's almost like, I want you here, but I don't want you here. And the way Jim Butcher writes this, it's like the tension is really palpable. But Harry's kind of broke, so he's not going to turn down money from the police department. So, he, of course, goes on to it. And, of course, being the magician asked to consult, the crime scene's going to be a little bit weird. There's a murder there. Lots of blood, like it's been a claw, like an animal. Maybe some fur, some aromas in the air. So it's one of those like, full moon? Could it be werewolves? Of course it is. Now, interestingly enough, and I learned this from a lecture series I had listened to, that you got to be careful if you're a person that's a writer that does things like this. Because if you say werewolves, everyone's going to conjure to their own mind what they've seen in werewolves in the past. And it'll have, like, the big things, like, for instance, full moon, silver bullets, maybe even some wolvesbane helps out. But there's, like, a certain werewolves are in the genre that have their own, I want to say tropes, but I don't know. It's not really trope, but they have their own rules that everyone knows. Okay? However, if you want to make this story, but for some reason your werewolves are different, you've got to set that up. You've got to take people and make sure they say, okay, what you know about werewolves isn't my werewolves. Harry Dresden fights these werewolves. So it's a very important thing, I think, that writers need to be cognizant of when they're going through making their story. But never fear. Jim Butcher thinks of everything. So he actually, while talking to people or being talked to, he learns there's actually 4 kinds of werewolves. 4 different ways in which they can come about. And they actually use a scientific term, if you want to call it that, a lupin teriomorph. And the lupin teriomorph comes in these 4 flavors. Okay, the first one being your classic werewolf. Okay, the classic werewolf, they can transform into the wolf. Okay, and this is usually done via some kind of magical means, but the magician did something to the person. And now they have werewolfism. Okay? Not much more to say about that one. The second one, which got very interesting, and I'm glad he put it in here, is something called hexen wolves. And Jim Butcher describes that hexen wolves are people that can transform into werewolves, but they do it through some form of physical object or talisman. Okay? They can use an amulet. They can use some kind of woven belt. They can use a ring. Whatever it happens to be, they need the object. And I'm saying this, I'm like grabbing my wedding ring off camera. They need the object in order to turn into the werewolf. And then they are that for as long as they want to, and then consciously, boop, turn it off. They go back to human. They go their way. And these are the kind of people that if it was a ring doing it, all you got to do is lop off the finger or take the ring off in some other fashion, and boom, they're no longer a werewolf. You're holding what makes you a werewolf. Keep going with the story. The third one is one I had never heard this phrase before, but I hadn't heard it when I first read this book, but I've heard it since. And they call that a loup-garou. French, maybe? I don't know. So, a loup-garou is a little more like the classic werewolf, but what you have is a curse on you. And this person actually turns into a werewolf with the full moon. So you have to worry about 2 or 3 nights during the course of a lunar month. And when they turn into a werewolf, it's more like a wolf-like demon that they turn into during the full moon. Okay? Again, It's a magical cause that someone has to magically curse you. Okay? But when these people become this wolf-like demon, they have no control over what they do. Imagine they just black out and come back again. Okay, they are savage. But this is the kind of type that silver is required. But there's a specific kind of silver, and I don't want to do any kind of spoiler alerts with this, but they do, in the novel, specify it must be this type of silver, not just any silver will do. So otherwise, these are just like the mad creatures that happen in the full moons. And finally, the last version they have, they just call the lycanthropes, which I always thought was a name for werewolves, but they actually use it specifically here. And you know something? It's defined for this book, so I'm fine with it. And a lycanthrope is a person who's affected by a natural condition, but they're actually born this way. So it doesn't go into much detail of what that actually entails, but for whatever the reason is, almost like, in X-Men, the mutants are born with the X gene, these people are born with the lycanthrope gene. Okay? And they can kind of like become werewolves at will. However, and this is defined in the book, they don't sprout fur and grow fangs and have their hands grow longer and longer and the nails come on out and do whatever else, and all of a sudden their knees crack in the back direction, whatever it is. They don't turn into wolves physically. They kind of channel that spirit of rage and werewolfism into their human body. And when they do that, they kind of lose their reason a little bit, but not all of it. They're stronger and faster. They even heal a little bit better. Okay? And of course, all of these things, if there is a full moon, will just be enhanced more. So they're kind of like Wolverine-like until later on. The best way I can think about visualizing this is if you ever saw the third movie in the M. Night Shyamalan trilogy, which was Unbreakable and Mr. Glass, followed by Split. If you saw Split, James McAvoy has this one part where he turns into, I think it's called just the Beast. And there are some times, I don't know if this is camera tricks or just his great acting, but you see him as he's there, and all of a sudden, like, in a second, something moves enough that you know, like, shit, he's the Beast right now. And now he's, like, a little bit more ripped, and he's just god-awful crazy at this point. So, I remember when I was watching this movie and those scenes happened, I was like, God damn, that was amazing. So, that turning into an aggressive but still human thing appears to be what these lycanthropes are. Okay? That's the 4 types of werewolves that are described in this book. Now, like most stories of this nature, you then have your protagonists going around, they have run-ins. We got 4 kinds of werewolf here. I gotta hit them all at one point during the book. Sometimes you go through 1, 2, 3, 4, and now it's like, alright, which one do I need to do something with? Yada yada, and you move on. Okay? And of course, as he has all of these different encounters with each of the type, you get to know more personally what each type actually represents, more than just the definition I gave. Okay? And almost at all ends, Harry meets up with these different groups, one after another, and he just gets the living bejesus beaten out of him. I mean, you can see which of these kind of werewolves are more animalistic than others, which ones actually have more control of their ego or their emotions, or which ones are completely batshit crazy. But the way he gets beat on so much reminds me when I used to read comic books back in the 80s and 90s. And DC had that one character, The Question. Vic Savage was the guy, and he's just a guy. And he had this putty he put over his face so it looked like there was no features. But for the most part, he just got the living bejesus beat out of him all the time. He was like a little private eye. No powers, whatever else. And we're not talking about the version in the Justice League Unlimited. That went more conspiracy to it. But that's our Harry Dresden. Other tidbits I can add to you about this book here is, the gangster Marconi. We met him in the first one. He plays more parts in this affair too. So, and you get a little bit more background on him. and his relationships, even his relationship with Harry, and that relationship goes to another level as well. They even throw another, I'll call her a werewolf, but there's another otherworldly figure into the mix. Okay. Very good to see when she has appearances in the book and the scenes that she's in. Very strong female you can get behind. But I think it kind of opened the door to be like, yes, and there's these other beings out there. Not that I had to go into all the details of what they are, where they come from, whatever else. For the sake of this novel, she was kind of like another werewolf. But it kind of gets you more into the occult, and it tells you more, there might be more of her kind in a book in the future as we start bringing that part of the universe into Harry's world. Okay? I said in the past, I was considering just reading all these books through and doing one big review of them, like I did Anne Rice's, all of her books for the most part. But I might do this one by one because I just found a new genre of books I'm going to be into, so I'll be intersplicing them as time goes on with my limited reading schedule outside of the reading that I record. So I'm going to leave it here now. If you've gotten this far, we're at about 16 minutes. I want to thank you for coming on the journey. Let me know if you thought anything that was pro or con, or hey, keep it up down there. You know, it's amazing that just a little bit of praise does feel awesome. So if you got that in you want to share it, please do. In the meantime, I'll throw up the banner up here somewhere and hit those buttons. You know what to do. You've heard it from everyone else before. I don't have to add it here. All right. In the meantime, keep reading. I'll see you soon. Like I said, I got 2 more ready to do. I might try to do them now. And if not, I'll do them tomorrow. All right. Bye-bye.